This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are, May the 7th, 2023. And for me, new progresses and jobs and stuff for me, but still doing this, and this is the fun part, And today we have a woman that just happened to bike in today, and she got free from the rest of the bikers. Yes, folks. One of my favorite zombie movies is Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, and we all remember that shopping center and well, there was one part of the movie where Tom Savini decided to take the bikers on a little shopping spree. Well, sort of, interrupting these zombies that were catching all the latest deals. And I have one of the bikers on the show with me today. Folks, I give you a stunt woman, an awesome person, Miss Trudy Gray. How do you do, Trudy?
I am wonderful today. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. Not doing
Good.
too bad. How's the weather where you are? I know you're an hour behind me.
Yeah, it's drizzly. Drizzly Sunday, but it's warm. So, Mayflowers?
There
What
you
happened to
go.
April showers?
I don't know.
I don't either. Well, we're getting the flowers and the rain today, so it's okay. It's all good.
All works, all works, all works. I notice on IMDb, like between Dawn of the Dead, Knightriders, and you worked a lot with Savini and Romero. But before we get into that, I would like to get a little bit of your background, how you get into the business, and more specifically, what led you to get into doing stunts.
I've been riding motorcycles since I'm about 17 years old. My grandfather, who is in his 70s, said to me, "It's time you got a motorcycle." Because he rode an old Indian and he was a biker and he was a speed freak. Even into his 70s he would go uh, drive down to Mexico because they had no speed limits and he could go 125, 135, 150 mile an hour and nobody would stop him or arrest him, and he could probably outrun them anyway because he always souped up his cars which he gave me one, and at one point in time he was really good to me, and he was a crazy old man, and I'm his granddaughter. So. But when I got the bike, it's just a little Honda, like a 125, I think it was. And they had an alley behind where I bought the bike at the was a bike shop, and they uh, put me in the back of the alley, and they said, "Okay, the shift is one down, three up on the left hand side. The clutch is on the left, the brake is on the right. Go for it." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I rode down, didn't even get out of first gear, turned around, came back, and the guy that was teaching me said, "You're good to go." So my granddad followed me home at rush hour in Pittsburgh, which is insane. And that was my first adventure on a motorcycle. And I actually did get it out of first gear on the way home and didn't stall it. So then I was a biker. So, and I would had very little fear of pretty much anything throughout my life, except for monster movies. I get scared at scary movies. And I know that makes no sense because I was in one, and so that's how I kind of started being a stunt driver, and I was an actor at the time. And ironically, and I'll say it the way they said it, ironically, the pagans were the bike gang that they used, a real bike gang that they used in the movie. And when I'll tell you about that later, but they said when they met me, they said, "We hope you're not one of those faggot actors." And I said, "Oh, no, no, I'm a biker." And actually I was, because my husband at the time rode with the pagans like 10, 15 years before that. And I rode with him a couple of times. And then I found out what the initiation was for women to become one of the biker gang. And I said, "I'm not doing that. No, I'm not going to sleep with all you guys. It's not going to happen. So we kind of quit. But I'm kind of drifting around here a little bit, but
Mhm.
I said, no, 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 I'm a biker. I'm not an actor, which I was, and I'm not going to tell them that, but they were pretty cool. And, they were help me down with my bike off the truck and stuff. And they kind of adopted me and, took care of me, and they were good to me. And the rest is history. But when I went into, I had an agent at the time. As I said, I was doing a lot of acting and a lot of plays and singing. I was a singer and a dancer also, and singing in different plays and songs and songwriters and stuff like that. And my agent called me up and he said, "Hey, you want to do a movie?" I said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun. I'll go." He goes, "Well, the auditions are blah, 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 whenever they were. Can't remember." He said, "Just go there and fill out the application and write down everything you know how to do. If you can bicycle, if you can roller skate, you can, and I've always been a jack of all trades. So I like to do all kind of, different things in my life, skydive, and haven't bungee jumped yet." So that's coming someday. So I went there were a bunch of people in this room and sat at this little table and wrote everything down that I like to do. And I wrote down motorcycle riding. And they collected everybody's papers. And about 10, 15 minutes later, this guy came running out. He says, "Who's Trudy Gray? Who's Trudy Gray?" I said, That's me." He said, "You wrote down here that you ride a motorcycle." And I said, "Yeah, I ride a bike." He goes, "Well, you any good? Do you really ride?" I said, "Ride with the big dogs." Like that. And he said, "Cool, come in here, come with me." And they said, "Can you really ride a motorcycle?" I said, "Yeah, I can ride a motorcycle. I've been riding for 10, 15 years and or close to that. And I ride, They said, "Okay, we'll use you." So they said, "Show up at the Monroeville Mall at 10 o'clock at night in the back." And I did. And on the date that they told me to be there. And that's the rest is history. Long story, huh?
Oh, I like it. I like it. Obviously, you kept yourself in shape and whatnot in order to, because stunt people, they step in, do what a lot of the actors can't do. They got to
Right.
stand in and do a lot of the heavy stuff. And I've had a lot of stunt people on here, from Ted White to Gene Coulter and Lisa Hoyle. I'm still in touch with, and Greg Anthony and folks like that. And I know the physicality goes into your bodies to do that. Um, Talk about that process with you. I know you did a lot of bike riding, but how do you prepare yourself for the heavy hitting stuff?
Well, at the time I was a lot younger. We won't discuss that, but I was in good shape. I was in very good shape, and I was very strong because at the time I owned a beer distributor
Hmm.
in Shady Side Point Breeze area, and I did all the heavy lifting. I unloaded 10 pallets of beer by myself. I would load up the deliveries for my who was my brother-in-law at the time. He would take all the deliveries out and everything, but I was the one that carried all the cases and loaded all the cases and palletized all the cases when they would deliver the beer. And I was the only woman in Pittsburgh, I was told, that would go down, excuse me, with a pickup truck and load 150 cases of beer and some half kegs and quarter kegs and come back and unload it myself. They said, "Oh, you're the only woman that does that. Usually everybody that is a female and they're rare have it delivered." I said, I can't afford that. I need to make that money. So I said, I'll pick up my beer. So that kept me in very good shape. Plus I played softball at the time and did a lot of, I never jogged, but was out always moving, bike riding and motorcycle riding, things like that. So that basically kept me in shape. And I was very strong. I could carry a half keg of beer at the time, which was 160 pounds, and I only weighed about 160 or 70 pounds. So, you know, that's what kept me in shape, and plus my legs and dancing and stuff like that. So as I said, I did a lot of theater and I still danced in it. And that's a sport. Dancing, you have to be really, really strong and have strong legs to be a dancer and
Mm-hmm.
flexible. So that, that plus the motorcycle riding, plus the beer distributor and all the other crazy things I did in my life, of water skied, stuff like that, kept me in pretty good shape. And still, for an old lady, I play volleyball a few times, a couple times a week, and I go dancing. I took up square dancing, and it's not as hokey as it sounds. It's a lot of good exercise, and they're real down to earth people. I just love them to pieces, and I do that at a couple different places, a couple times a week, 2-3 hours at a time. So that I'm still in pretty good shape for an old broad. So
Well, I know in Dawn of the Dead, of course, you're part of that motorcycle gang, and of course,
yeah,
this was a fun, real. Well, the movie's fun anyway, but this was a real fun part of the movie when the motorcycle gang comes down there and just they don't care. They're just gonna go down there and mess with the gut zombies, and of course, Tom Savini, of course, seems to be the head of the gang, and Savini's an interesting character. I've never met him. I would have met him at Frightmare in the Falls last year, but he ended up canceling last minute. So, but nonetheless, Savini's an interesting character because it does all these gore effects, and he, of course, I believe, was a photographer in Vietnam. So, which really lends to why his gore effects are so realistic looking.
right.
And I've always admired Savini. I can't imagine what he saw at Vietnam, and but nonetheless, he's also a stunt person and able to do all that as well. And of course, you work with him again in Knight Rider.
Excuse me.
Yeah, um, talk about first meeting Savini and your impressions of him.
Well, it was weird because I had scars. They like put scars on my arms and on my face, which that was in Knight Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And he was directing that. He was telling the girl that was doing this. And this is a long time ago too, so memories fade. But she had a scar that started here and went down across my neck and down into here, and it was
Mm-hmm.
so realistic. That wasn't in Dawn, but that was in Knight Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you something real quick about that later. But Savini he's weird in he's tongue in cheek, if you know what I mean. He's a
Mm-hmm.
little goofy, he's a little off the wall, but he's all business. He's all, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to get this right, and this is what I want, but let's have fun with it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which made that kind of nice. And he would basically give us, this is what I want to see, this is what I want you to do. And then it was more hands off than micromanaging things. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of led to a few things that shouldn't have happened. Like I can be a little rebellious sometimes. And we were the infamous, as it is now, uh, the bridge. There used to be in the Monroeville Mall. There was like a whole. It looked like a tropical
Yep.
center of the
Mm-hmm.
the mall, and they had trees and palm trees, and they had this bridge that was had to be pretty sturdy. And he had us waiting. We were like waiting to go down the hallways, which, they filmed a lot in the hallways. And I'm sitting there next to the one biker, and I said, I'm getting bored. He said, yeah, we've got the motorcycles going and it's loud and we're sitting there and we're waiting and we're sitting there. And I looked at the bridge and I was right beside the bridge. I said, I'd love to ride across that bridge. He said, do it. I said, we'll get in trouble. He goes, so what? What are they going to do to us? He said, what are they going to do to you? And I said, you're right. So I went across the bridge, which messed up the whole sequence of us in line because he wanted me near the front. the ride most of the time, because being a woman and being the only female stunt driver actually riding my own bike, he wanted me towards the front, and I went across the bridge. We had a reline. I had to squeeze up between everybody on my bike and redo everything, and I didn't really get in trouble, but I knew they weren't really happy with me at the time. I said, okay, I'll behave. But that, he was like cool with it. He was like, I get it. Just please don't do that again, because we were ready for you guys to go. And we had to wait, and that, time's money. I said, okay, I get it. I'm sorry, so, but other than that, he was, he was pretty cool about it, of what he wanted it to see in the scenes, like where we were around riding around the fountain that was there at the time, and there were like 3 or 4 or 5 steps down into to walk that you walk down into the fountain. He said, I want some of you to go down those steps and up and around that fountain. And he didn't say who he wanted to go. He just said, if you feel like it, just go down and ride around, So I did it once, because my bike was a little bit too big to be doing the stunts, because I had like a bigger, I had a Honda. And of course, the bikers made fun of me for that. No offense to anybody who's Japanese, but they called it my Jap scrap. I said, hey, I know it's Jap scrap, but I'm not going to bring my Harley here, and have to do all this stuff. I can't, ride a Harley in this, because I am a woman. Hello, so, but that was the way he operated, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give you guys a half an hour. See you back in a half an hour. And if you were a couple minutes late or whatever, he wasn't like screaming, freaking out. He's real low key.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the director of this film, George Romero. Now, I unfortunately never got to meet George. I did a tribute interview on him on here because I met his widow, Suzanne, at Horror Brahma 2017. She had the little George Romero dolls and whatnot there,
Yeah.
and I got to meet her there and had her come on here and tribute to him. And what's interesting, they always said that George Romero was the godfather of zombie movies,
Oh yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and so on and so forth, Land of the Dead. What I find interesting with George is a lot of people don't think about the fact he did, like, in between Night and Dawn, he did, Season of the Witch, he did Martin, and he did all kinds of different types of films, especially horror films. But a lot of people associate him with zombie films, and it's funny because I hear the guy that is George Romero, and the movies he makes is kind of like Wes Craven's, totally different.
Yeah.
Talk about George Romero and meeting him and your impressions of him.
Well, sadly, we didn't see too much of him.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because he was mostly filming like at different times, because Romero was George was more like of the big picture. Do you know what I mean? With
Hmm.
most of the acting, again, but with us, it was more Tom Savini that was the boss for us, because of the stunts and things like that. But meeting George, he's a few times that I did really meet him, and then I met him more on Knight Rider. He was a very laid back man. You would have never thought this man was a director of horror films, let alone zombie movies, because the zombie movies were pretty ick. You know what I mean? They were
Yeah.
like out there, especially at the time. My gosh, I mean, that was like cutting edge stuff that he was doing, really. And to look, if you would meet this man on the street, you would just think he was like maybe a doctor, or or somebody who was like a somebody that was worked in an office or something. You would never put that on him as being a director of horror films. Just a kind man, and just I don't know, somebody you could talk to if you had an issue, you had a problem. So what do you want here? Or what do you think about this? Or, hey, it's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. I remember it was like we didn't know at the time what we were doing. We were just having fun and, we didn't know that it was going to become what it is. It's a cult film, for goodness sakes. I was talking to I go to church, and I went to church and I said, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a podcast today. And they're like, yeah, you never cease to amaze us. Like you're always goofy, you're always doing something. And I said, well, they said, well, what for? And I said, well, I was in a movie years and years ago, and they said, oh, really? Well, I said, yeah. They said, well, what movie was it? I said, Dawn of the Dead. They're like, get out. And these are young people. They're like in their 20s, early 20s. They knew the movie. They knew about the movie. They liked the movie. They had seen it. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they had given me a little, made me at the con, they had made me uh, like a baseball card with me on it and the story of, that I was a female motorcycle rider and all this stuff in it. And I showed them that, and it's kind of worn and torn. They're like, that is so cool. We remember you. We remember you in the film. I'm like, get out, So, and they said, you don't look too much different than you did then. I said, that's my cheeks. So they remembered it. And so it is a cult film. It's like crazy that people remember it. We didn't know. We thought we were just doing some little local movie that was going to be shown maybe locally and move on, but to have people remember it, what is this, like 100 years later or something? That it's amazing. It's amazing to me that it's perpetuates to the next and the next and the next and the next generation. And that's really awesome, to be part of that. So there you go.
Well, I hear a lot about the Dawn of the Dead Mall. I've never been there, but I
Oh,
know
you have
Sean.
to come.
Yeah, I know Sean Clark talks about it a lot, and he represents a lot of the folks for the conventions, and I guess they really celebrate that movie at that mall. Talk about the Dawn
Yeah.
of the Dead Mall.
Oh my gosh. Ironically, I lived very close to that mall and frequent it often. And it's so different now today than it was then. And it was it was more of a meeting place at the time. They don't have the ice skating rink anymore. They don't have everything that was there is gone. That's things like that at mall. It's just a shopping mall now. And now, I mean, I've been in it somewhat recently because I went to the con. They kind of found me, and invited me to go to actually for the Night of the Living Dead. They have it up at Evans City,
Hmm.
and they invited me to go up there about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I'm terrible with timing like that, but I went up there and did that outside. But then I went to the first con at Monroeville Mall. And it was like, oh my gosh, because it's been a while since I had been there. And it's so different. It's just like a different place. But back in those days, back in the old days, they it was more of a meeting place where people would go, young people would go and hang out. I mean, recently, sadly, a year or two ago, they had shootings up there. And, they've had to really clamp down on checking people when they come in so they don't have weapons, and checking people that and so they don't have the danger that that kind of thing perpetuates. But and ironically again, and I have it right here, I carry a blade with me in my
Hmm.
purse. I just always I I have it right here. It's like it's not open. I'm not going to open it, but I always carry this blade with me, and it's in my purse, and I forget about it. I forget about it that it's there, and I've gone through the metal detectors, like even in downtown Pittsburgh. I'll have to go into the city county building once in a while, and they'll stop me and they'll say, what do you have in your purse? I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot about my blade. And they're like, your blade? It's like, you're an old white lady. What are you doing with a blade? And I'll say, oh, here, can you keep it for me? And they'll say, oh yeah. But that's the difference of it then, of the mall now, than it was then, because it was more just like a family place where, you take your kids and go ice skating or whatever, but to be in it after that, to be, to have the memories of coming down the back hill on our motorcycles at like, 1 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
whole different world, and going around, riding around the motorcycle around the parking lot that was empty because it was after 10 o'clock at night, everybody was gone. So it was a different world, and it was really weird. It was a little, I don't know. I want to say spooky, but a little bit eerie. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word. To go into the mall at night after being in it during the day, at that time during the 70s, and then going in at night when nobody was there except for us, and just walking around and, as I said, having the big back double doors open so we could ride in and out. So it was just uncanny. It just felt weird and eerie to be in that mall at night after being in it during the day. But it's still alive, and it's still there, and it's kind of neat to know that it's still part of the memories.
Mm-hmm.
That people can go to it and say, "Oh yeah, this is where the movie was filmed." And all those crazy people were here and did that thing, and to look at the movie now and look at the pictures. Excuse me, sometimes people will send me pictures on my email or online on Facebook of, oh, we found this picture of you, and it's like a still of me in the bandana riding down the mall, and just sparks that memory. It's cool of that the mall's still there, but
Absolutely. It's funny because that con I met Suzanne at, Romero's widow.
all right.
That was the first con I'd ever been to. I've lived here in New Brunswick my whole life, and it wasn't until 2017. Canadian actress Lisa Langlois invited me to assist her at Horrorama in Toronto, and I couldn't say no to that. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with Toronto. I fell in love with the culture there, and that was the first time I've been to a con. Loved it. Um, Talk about some of your convention experiences. Like, this is a question I ask everybody. What's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Oh my gosh, that's an easy one. There's a gentleman, don't recall his name, but he has created a miniature, uh, 3D miniature of the mall. And he brings it around and he has people sign it. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. How did you do this? He says, just things that I like to do. So he asked me, he said, I just remember you so much in that movie that he said, I want you to sign right above, like the mall had, or I don't know if it still does, but he did had me sign it right on the top of the entranceway of the mall. So that was kind of the most unique thing, but I thought that was pretty awesome that he had created that and he was having us all sign that. Of course, the posters and things like that. I signed a person one time.
Yeah, I hear those stories a lot.
Yeah, I did sign a person, and then I've signed t-shirts. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's just really off the wall, but the mall, the 3D of the mall was the best one, I think. He'll know who he is, and he'll get a kick out of it that I remembered him and his creation.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to mention, and I'm not going to mention her name because I don't know how she'd feel about that, but she and her boyfriend sell t-shirts at the mall. It's just a cool story that just one of the reasons that makes me so glad that I was a part of this. And to hear something like this story that she told me, just blows me away. And if I tear up, I'm not a wimp, but it just touches my heart.
Mhm.
And she'll know who she is too. She came in and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're Trudy Gray." And I'm like, "Yeah, unless there's a bill collector involved, that's me." And she laughed and she said, "Can I sit down with you for a while?" And I said, "Well, sure." She's young. I guess her in her 20s at the time. The first time I met her, she was adorable, cute little blonde girl. And not a kid, but a young woman. And she started to talk to me and she said, "I have to tell you my story." I said, "Okay." And she said, "When I was very young," she said, "I was not supposed to live." She said her legs were crippled, and I know that's not she had a defect in her legs that she couldn't walk, and she was young. And when she went to school, she had to walk with braces and things like that. And the kids at school would make fun of her and laugh at her. And and so after a while, she was stricken to bed. She couldn't walk. And so they kind of let her see whatever she wanted to do, her parents. And I don't blame them. You got a little kid in bed that can't walk and she's, feeling terrible about it. And so they let her watch the Dawn of the Dead movie, even though, a little kid, you're not going to little 7, 8-year-old kid watch a movie like that in general, unless they're pretty stable. And so they let her watch that movie. She said, "I watched that movie and I'd watch that movie and I'd watch that movie over and over and over again." I said, "Really? Like that?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "And I saw you in that movie. And when I saw you in that close up, I thought, wow, she's a badass chick like that." And she said, "I thought after I kept watching that movie, if she can be a motorcycle rider and she's a badass chick, I can be a badass chick too." And so I fought. And I'm getting chills as I tell this. She said, "I
Mhm.
fought because I was never supposed to walk again." She said, "And I fought and fought to get my legs back working again. And through the therapy that they gave her, that was very painful," she said, "I fought through it and I walk today." She said, "I walk with a limp." And I said, "I didn't notice that." And she said, "I walk with a limp, but I can walk. And part of that is because of you." And who would think when you're doing this movie that you would affect people like that?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And who knows who else that saw that movie and because of me or because of someone else that was in that movie, that it affected their life like that. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I
Yep.
just had to share that with you. And I
Oh, I
love her to
love
pieces.
that.
I love her to pieces. She's a doll baby. She's Every time I'm there, she'll come and see me. "I'm so glad you're here."
Mhm.
Me too. I'm still here, still kicking, but not quite as high. you know.
Yeah. It's funny too, I also, I haven't had him on the show yet, but I did meet Ken Faree at, Frightmare in the Falls a couple of years ago, and, that was interesting, and, I gotta bring up the cast because 'cause I'm gonna end up misplacing some names here,
It's funny because I don't remember a lot of the names and stuff. The bikers, I remember what they looked like, but we didn't really, like remember each other's names and stuff, and which is sad. I know them
yeah.
to see them nowadays, but Butchie, of course, I had a crush on Butchie. He's gone now, but you know, he was my man during that time, and Buddy, my friend, doing the filming, a couple other guys too.
How cool too, like, you had a female in the film. The lead female was, of course, pregnant, and which added a whole new level of tension to the film, and yeah. Um, I don't know. I watch that movie, and I'm like, um, Of course, it's easy for her to sit back and say, I wouldn't have done that, or I wouldn't have done that.
Oh
I
yeah.
probably would have kept myself a little more alert because there are some places when they're running around those trucks trying to gas it up or whatever, they're not being they're being a little more reckless than they should be, which resulted in one of them, of course, getting bit. And which led to that interesting moment where the fella is underneath that blanket and you can just see it move.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but
that's scary.
yeah. Um Dawn of the Dead to me, I love the mall setting and were you around there when Savini did any of the effects work, or like did you see him do any of that for Dawn of the Dead?
You mean as far as, well, the one thing that I was supposed to have done, you mean like for the stunts and things like
Hmm.
that? I didn't see him really do anything that
I
he,
mean, like the makeup effects, like the zombie makeup effects, where like did you see him working on anything like that, with like people being ripped apart or whatever, you know?
well, he was in the room when we were all getting our makeup and our costumes and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I do remember him working on, this is just vaguely because once again, it's not something that I, really focused on because I thought this was, oh, this is a flash in the pan and it's something I'm going to do and move on. And so he was doing makeup on the zombies and stuff and directing other people that were doing the makeup what he wanted on the zombies. But to really just sit back and say, yeah, I saw him do this or do that. No, I didn't. I don't recall. I just, it's like a vague thing. Like he was there, he was telling people what to do, that kind of thing. But can't help you out too much on that.
Well, let's transition over to Night Riders, another very, very different Romero film. And interestingly enough, I saw Night Riders for the first time not too long ago. And I actually did it in preparation for this, but it was back when we first connected by phone.
Right.
Got to send a little shout out to Tommy Kovac from Splat from the Past, who recommended you very highly.
Good
And
man.
yep. And
Very good man.
yep. And he asked me if I had any Dawn of the Dead people on. And I said, outside the George Romero tribute with his widow, I said, I don't think so. And and I've never had Ken Foree on yet. I've met him and Ken I know is busy, but if I get him on, I get him on. But I know that Tommy's had a lot of the zombies and whatnot on there, and I should connect with him on that so I can have some of these zombie folks on there, because one of the things that stood out with me of Dawn of the Dead was so many different looking zombies. Like
Right, right.
this zombie or that zombie or. But
You better hurry
yeah,
up because we're all getting old.
yeah, well, I'll have to do that. But with Night Riders, it was very, very different. It's kind of like I saw Beau Was Afraid recently at the theater, and there's a section in that where he runs Walking Phoenix runs into this theater group in the middle of the forest, and they're putting on this play. And I kind of think about Night Riders, when I see that, because they weren't putting on a play, they were doing these motorcycle things where they come at each other with these lances and
Jousting.
all.
Yeah, the jousting.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. And of course, Savini being the Black Knight and whatnot, and you had Ed Harris in there, and a very interesting choice of film for George Romero. So, of course, you're on the bikes again.
Typecast.
Yep. So,
It was fun. It was that was a lot of work. That
hmm
was a lot of work. It was actually filmed in a strip mine, and the we rode in a gravel pit.
yep.
Excuse me. And I don't know if you ride a motorcycle or not, but gravel is not a motorcycle rider's friend.
No.
It's not. It's, you avoid it at all possible costs. You come around a bend and you see gravel and you think, I'm going to die. So you avoid it at all at possible costs, like I said. But this was like the whole thing was all gravel. And just to hold the bike up, at the end of the night, like I rode my bike, I rode my own bike,
Mhm.
and they had the little, I call them a little ding, 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 like,
Mhm.
like the small bikes, like the stunt bikes and stuff. And by the end of the night, the end of the day, my shoulders were so sore,
I bet.
just like everything was sore from just riding the bike. And it was basically like it was a pretty big pit, but we just were going around in a circle and going around in a circle. Sadly, everything that we did was cut. We weren't even in the movie. That was the sad part. When I saw the movie, I'm like, we're not there. They cut everything. They cut a few, they left a few of the stunts. Like I think the one guy had a bike that split in half, like it broke
Mhm.
when he went up a ramp and into the lake. There was a lake there, and he went up a ramp and went into the lake. And as he went into the lake, the bike split in half, which was really an awesome stunt. It was really great, and things like that were still somewhat in the movie. I've only seen the movie one time, and so disappointed that we weren't in it after all the work, because we were there for over a week filming,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of work. But it was interesting because it was so different from the Dawn of the Dead. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's where they did give me the scar came
Mhm.
across my throat, but you're really, what a waste. But with on a personal level, ironically, I don't know if you've ever heard of Civic Light Opera that's at Heinz Hall, or
Mhm.
now it's at the Benedum in downtown. I was still doing a lot of theater at the time when I was asked to do that film. And I said, well, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so that I had already set up my audition to be in Civic Light Opera, to go audition to be in Civic Light Opera.
Mhm.
And it was such cutting it so close, because literally my audition was like at 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night. And I had to get my bike back up on my truck and get into downtown Pittsburgh from where we were filming, and get in there for my audition. I did not have time to change my clothes. I did not have time to fix my hair. After a whole day of filming, in the dirt, in the grime, in the dust of that that gravel pit, they literally threw my bike up in the back of my truck, bungeed it in, and I flew into downtown Pittsburgh. And thank God it was after we could park on the streets. So I parked in front of it. I think it was Heinz Hall at the time that we were doing the Civic Light Opera in. I parked in front of there, and I knew the doorman. I said, could you please keep an eye on my bike? I have an audition today. And I said, yeah, sure. He said, sure. And so I ran in, had my sheet music with me, still in my, I had a blue jean jacket on and a rag on, the blue jean rag, and ripped jeans, and my hair I looked like a beast and filthy, and this scar and a scar on my arm. So I ran upstairs, and when I went in, they're like, can we help you? I'm like, yeah, I'm here for an audition. They're like, okay, I wrote my name down. And I went in and I sat down, and the people that I sat down kind of looked at me like this and got up and moved away from me. And I'm like, I'm in a movie. This is my costume for the movie. Then everybody was starting to talk to me and what was going on and ask me and everything. So it was pretty cool. So the
Mhm.
way they do the audition is they have people line up, about 5 or 6 people in line. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I've had bronchitis, and I'm
Yeah,
happy to
I
have
know.
my voice back. So it's, I don't always sound like I'm in a gravel pit myself, but
Mhm.
but anyway, so they say these young people come up to you, and they're students and stuff, and they say, okay, get in line and stand in line and have your music ready, and when you go in, don't talk, hand your music to the piano player, stand on the X and sing, and they'll tell you to stop singing, and then sing your next song, because you do 2 songs, and then don't talk to them, don't converse, don't just sing and shut up and get out of there, because we have a lot of people. So you know me a little bit, but you don't really know me yet. So I, they said, okay, it's your turn, go in. So I peeked my head in the door and I said, "Look, I just want to tell you guys, I don't look like this. This is my costume. I'm doing a movie right now. I'm riding a motorcycle in a movie right now. I'm a stunt driver, and I'm dirty and I'm filthy, and I really don't look like this." And they're like, "Oh, okay, come on in. Come on in." So I went in and I knew the piano player. I had done so many shows with him, Jimmy. I won't tell you his last name again. I said, "James, sweet baby James, what do you play piano for me? Cool, honey. Here you go. Here's my." I'm breaking every rule that they've told us to you keep. And he goes, "Hey, how you doing?" We're talking. I'm like, "Oh, sorry. I'm ready to sing now." They're cracking up. The people, the people that were auditioning us were just cracking up, right? So I'm standing there dressed like I'm dressed with my hair, and I went, "I could have danced all night. I could have danced," and they're cracking up, and so, okay, all right, all right. So they picked me, and I did the shows that year. I did the Civic Light Opera for the summer season that year, and I think it was because I was such a goof, and they remembered me. They said, "We got to do something with you." I'm like, "Okay, whatever you want to do." So that was it,
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
I noticed looking through the credits too that Romero's daughter Christine was in some of these movies. Did you have any interactions with her?
No, I
No?
didn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Did you meet Ed Harris on the set of Knight Riders? Or Patricia
Oh,
Tolman?
Ed, Big Ed. Oh
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yep. That was a lot of fun. And Patricia, in it comes someone in passing. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like again,
Yep.
we were at night. We were mostly at night. And I
Mm-hmm.
did meet them at they had an opening at the movie, the
Yep.
gala,
Premiere. Yep. Yep.
the premiere, right in the at Chatham Theater. This was many, many years ago. The theater's gone now, and they invited us all down, and I got, I met them more, so got to talk. And since then, at the cons and stuff, we talk, we go out and have, dinner, lunch, or whatever afterwards. Great people. He's a character, so he's just a big gentle giant. It's just a sweetie pie. But that was a lot of fun. Can I tell you a story about the I'm a
Go ahead.
storyteller. I can't help myself. And as
There's
you can
no time. There's no time limit here. You go right ahead. Yeah.
as you can tell, I'm so shy.
Mm-hmm.
But but anyway, we went to the for the opening, and I got dressed up. I mean, I had high heels on and a dress and fixed the hair and the whole bit, and makeup. And I wanted to sit with my people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um I went down, and I went in, and I'm standing there, and they're like, "Oh, are you here? Or who are you in the movie?" I said, "Well, I was one of the bikers." "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was." And I said, "Where are the bikers? I want to go sit with them." And they're like, "Okay, they're down in front." Oh, go figure, of course, rowdy, crazy people. So I go down, and there's like a couple rows of bikers and people associated with bikers and stuff, and there's one seat like right in the middle. Well, guess where I want to sit. So I go in, and they're dressed in the biker regalia, right? They're still dressed, and here's me in my high heels and my little short skirt, and I said to the one, I'm standing there, and I'm kind of looking at them, and they're looking at me like and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, hey," and I said, "Well, I'd like to sit there, I'd like to, can you like move so I can go sit there?" And they're like, because they didn't recognize me at all. And they're like, "This is for the bikers only." I said, "Yeah, I know that." And they said, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "I had enough of this." I said, "I want you to get your ass up and move so I can get in there and sit down. Don't make me hurt you." They're like, "Trudy." I said, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're not you." I said, "Well, I figured we're coming to an opening. I wanted to look, pretty. They're like, yeah, yeah, come on, and they're like helping me in and sitting down, and they're like, this is Trudy, this is Trudy. I'm like, yeah, hey, sorry, sorry to disappoint. And they were all like, whoa, you clean up really good, honey. I'm like, thanks, man. So that was just funny. I just cracked me up. I'm like, get your ass up out of the way. And then they recognized me. So it was fun.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that really grabbed me whenever we first had our first phone call, whenever of course you had the bronchitis and we
Yeah,
arranged this, yeah, over a month ago. And I love the fact that you're a woman of faith, and I was baptized, I believe it was 1988, age 16, and I believe it's funny, I hear a lot of people in churches, they hate R-rated films. They hate horror
yeah,
films. And
yeah,
then the Passion of the Christ comes out, and it would fit right on the cover of Fangoria magazine if they wanted to put it there, And
right.
I love the Passion, but I got to tell you, that came very close to an X rating, that film did,
It should have been
Yeah.
as, and see, I didn't see it because I just couldn't bring myself to see it. I just,
You know what?
can't think about that
I
pain.
have it here on Blu-ray, and I gotta say, it really I mean, Mel Gibson had done Braveheart, yeah, but The Passion really elevated him as a filmmaker.
Yeah,
The lighting, I mean, yes, it has the gore effects, but, the lighting, this different camera angles, he was so innovative. I really dug The Passion a lot more than I thought I was going to.
yeah,
And, oh, yeah, and, it's one of those films that just gives me a lot of hope, because, um, to me, when I think of a lot of people think Lethal Weapon or they think Mad Max. I think of The Passion of the Christ, and it's like, what a masterpiece, and, really, really dug it,
see, I
and,
haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen excerpts from it, and I thought, wow, that's so realistic. I would
oh,
like to,
yeah.
I wanted to go see it up to the crucifixion. You know what I mean? And I know our movie was gory, but that was our movie. Do you know what I mean? That was just us. That's who we were. But for that, that's real. And I won't be shy about it. I love Christ. I love him. I love
Mhm.
Jesus. I love who he
Yep.
is. I love what he did for me, what he did
Mhm.
for humanity, and the love that it had to take to know he could get out of that. And I sure as heck would have avoided that. To
Yep.
love somebody, love people enough to go through that just so we could be with him in heaven. And I know I talk like that, and non-believers go, "You're so goofy," or "What do you talk like that for?" Because it's my heart, because and I'm a late bloomer. I was not, I was became a Christian when I was in my, uh, I won't tell you when I was, how old I was, but it was in the late 80s. So,
Mhm.
you know what I
Same
mean?
here, same
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I wasn't
1988.
16 though. I
Yep.
was a little bit older than 16, but it's to talk about that and to think that somebody would go through that, even if I was just the only person in the whole world, so that I could be forgiven of all the crap. And I've done a lot of crap in my life. There's no
Same
halo.
here.
There's no halo on this head. You know what I mean? There's never been an angel, just a saint. But wasn't a saint when I was younger. That's for
I just got terminated from a job, and it wasn't all my doing. I got gaslit by somebody who
oh,
wanted to more or less cut my throat, but
it
nonetheless,
happens.
I did not react very well, and I reacted, not physically violent, but verbally violent, and,
Yeah, I get that.
yeah, and people are always quick to judge you if you're a Christian or whatnot, and but we make mistakes. To me, one of my favorite sections of the Bible, and when I need some encouragement, this is a story I go to, is the story of King David. Because, this is a guy that, took down Goliath, but he's also a guy that screwed up so much,
Oh, yeah.
with the
Yeah.
Bathsheba situation and whatnot.
Yeah,
And
and sending Uriah to get killed, her husband. Let's send him to the
yep,
front line so he gets killed, and let's bring him back so he can think he got his wife pregnant, and then we'll get him killed. If
yep,
people would really sit down and read the Bible, it's gory.
yep,
It's about a lot of I don't want to say losers because we're all losers without Christ, and that sounds hokey, but
mhm,
yeah, I used to make fun of people like me.
mhm,
Jesus saves, yeah, green stamps, yeah, spirits out. I did. I made fun of people like me, and it just shows me that God has a sense of humor that He would save somebody like me. That cracks me up. But that's the thing. If people would really sit down and read that, and God didn't take that stuff out of the Bible to make David look lily white. He left
mhm,
all that gory stuff in there and all that evil stuff and all those sins. I'll call it like it is, sin of all the things that people did in those days and we do now. Do you know what I mean? We're no better. People say, "Oh, it's so much worse now." No, it's not. It's the same as it was 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. People are all still depraved, still do terrible things to each other, still again, I'll call it like it is, sin against each other and against themselves and stuff that but it wasn't on the big screen. It wasn't on the TV. It wasn't, glorified on the television in the news like it
mhm.
is now, but it still happened years and years ago. It still happened, you know, and we still need God. We still need a savior. We still, we're still goofy after all
Yes,
these years.
I
No
agree.
matter what you've done, no matter what you've done, if you've killed, if you've stolen, if you've and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it on screen. And if you think it through. I have literally committed every one of the sins that the 10 commandments told us not to do. And it's not a list of don't do this and don't do that and don't do this and don't do something else. It's a list of if you do this, you're going to hurt somebody. If you do this, you're not going to be loving to someone. And that's all God wants from us is love. He wants us to love each other and love Him. Love Him first, and then we love each other. Do you know what I mean? If you love somebody, you're not going to sleep with his wife. If you love somebody, you're not going to steal from him. If you love somebody, if you love your parents, you're not going to diss them. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. Uh, and I have gone against all of those things. And
I'm still
I
struggling with some of
know,
those. Yep.
yeah, and I know I'm forgiven. I know that I'm going to heaven because not for anything that I've done, but because what Christ chose to do on the cross for me.
Mhm.
And I take that very personally. That's
My
everything
dad
for me. So,
my dad passed away after a 8-year battle of ALS, um, in April 5th, 2022. And I'm gonna tell you, dad was one of the biggest believers I ever knew. There was stuff my dad did that he just did, but I kinda noticed. Like, he'd get up at 3 in the morning to go plow people's driveways in the
mm,
wintertime, and he never asked for a cent. When I worked at the spring water plant that we owned for 19 years, and anytime, the transport truck would come there to drop off water coolers and stuff like that, Dad would always take a box of 500 milliliter that would have 24 bottles in it, and he'd just give it to the driver. You know, uh, it was who my dad was, and I know he struggled, but he probably had it in his mind, why, Lord, like Job, why am I stricken with this
mm,
disease? But one thing caught my attention, the December Christmas before he passed, and he could not speak. He was very limited in the way he could move. But I remember he was trying to say something or get a message across to one of the caregivers, you know? And I come to figure out what it was, and they finally figured out he wanted them to get the darn Kleenex box off the Bible.
Ah, aw,
Yeah. I'm like, Dad remained, and I saw Dad the morning before he passed. So when he passed away, I wasn't surprised. But I know my dad right now is free. He doesn't have
right,
that dreaded disease,
right.
you know? And there's days where I just wish that because I just went through a depression recently to do with the job I just lost, and people there, a lot of them won't talk to me anymore, and I find it funny, that my side doesn't get heard, but the perpetrator's story, sure, yeah,
Of course.
yep.
They don't
So,
want to hear what you have to say. They want to believe the worst. It's the sad thing. Well,
yep,
can I just tell you maybe something will help you?
sure.
I worked for a trucking company that I won't name
Mm-hmm.
for 6 years, and they trusted me enough to go and open up new terminals for them and hire people for them. I did it was a small trucking company that grew into a huge trucking company within those 6 years that I worked for them. And I worked very closely with the boss. And at one point in time, since I worked so closely with him, I got blamed for everything. And I got screamed at and I got sworn at and I was treated like a dog. I had people 2 offices away say, "Who is he screaming at?" I said, "Me. He's screaming at me." "What did you do?" I said, "I didn't do anything, but I got blamed for," and I could prove it because on the computer, when you hit function 10, it would give you the initials of the people who did what what he was blaming me for. And I would say hit F10 and he'd say, "Oh, okay, that wasn't you. We'll just make sure they know about it." No, you go scream and swear and yell at them and tell them that you're going to wipe the street up with them. Don't tell me. So at one point in time, he had just basically, as they say, tore me a new one. And I went in and I said, "You know what? I really need you to stop doing this, please, because it's, number one, he had a mouth on him like a sore. And, my name does not start with an F. And I said to him, please don't treat me like this anymore. I'm a human being. Uh, and most of the things, 99% of the things that you're screaming at me for, I didn't do. And it's demoralizing, it's degrading, and it's dehumanizing. Please don't swear at me anymore. Please don't scream at me anymore." And he said, "Oh, I'll keep that in mind." The very next day, the place that I worked, I checked in. I was at that time I was checking in all the drivers at night. I had like 53 drivers that I checked in every night. And something happened that I didn't do, and he came in screaming. He was actually purple in the face. I was afraid he was going to hit me. And I said to him, I just looked at him like, "Didn't I just ask you not to do this?" And he went, and I said to him, "Please don't do this." And he literally, that's when he turned purple and punched his hand into his fist. I thought he was going to punch me. And he turned around and walked out. The next day when I came to work, my services after 6 years were no longer needed, which I'm like, and I knew why. So I left, and ironically, it was great because it turned out to be a good thing. Number one, they did not fight my unemployment because they knew better. Because there was no reason that he should fire me. So they gave me unemployment. I had the whole summer off. I got paid for the whole summer. I played all summer, had a good time. After that happened, I worked in one other place. And because I used the phone after a car accident, I got fired. I said I was trying to get my car fixed because, and on my lunch hour, they said, we have a no phone call. This was pre cell phones. I said, I was on my lunch hour, blah, blah, blah. I had to call. Well, guess what? I still got fired because I used the business phone for a personal call. I said, okay, fine. All these things like you're going through right now. Oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? Why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything wrong. Why are they blaming me for things that, I know how you feel because I felt the same way. Well, I don't know how you feel, but I know how I felt. It was really crappy.
I
Right
worked,
now,
yeah.
right now in my life, this is not braggadocious. This is me telling you about my blessing. I'm a multimillionaire.
Mhm.
I own quite a few properties. I became, after that, I bought, well, while I was working for the last place that I got fired from, I took a few classes for real estate investing. And I thought, well, shoot, I can do that. So I bought two houses. And now I have enough money that I can take the time off. So I'm charging rent, and I'm doing all the work myself because I know how to sweat a pipe. I know I can put up drywall. I was the little boy my dad never had, so I learned all those things. So my mom was a model, so I had all the, oh, you have to be feminine and you have to be a girl and you have to wear makeup. But then I could go in the woods with my dad and go hunting and get all these things. So I knew how to do these things, and that started me on the trip. And now I'm buying commercial properties. I'm buying, 50 unit, 150 unit apartment buildings. And I own a lot of single family homes. And to date, what I do is it's become kind of a ministry for me that I don't only just do rentals in my houses, I do rent to own lease options. And to date, I've helped 13 people to own their own house, 13 families to own their own house who could have never owned a house if without me helping them. So do you see where it's come from? I lost two jobs. I didn't do anything wrong. God, what are you doing here to God getting me out of working for somebody else and giving them my best when now I'm giving me my best and God my best. And my best is I can help other people and still make a lot of money at the same time. So I tell you that to give you hope and to give anybody else that needs to hear this, if they're listening. Don't think just because bad things are happening right now, keep the faith. Keep faith that no matter what you're going through right now, hope is only what having faith in things that you don't see. It's not here yet. So you don't know where God's going to take you or what's going to happen in your life or where you're going to be tomorrow. So I just had to share that with you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. No, I did good job where I was. I worked in housekeeping at the local hospital here, and I never missed any time. I got 9 Bravos from my work there, and there was days where I would do an overnight, and people were they were short staffed, and I would do a double. I did 18 hours one time. My big mistake is I ended up having a crush on one of my coworkers who had a boyfriend.
Oh,
And she knew this, and she seemed to be fine with it. But I had a third party individual interfere in that at the workplace, and that's what ended up causing me to get fired. Another thing that added to that, I'd interviewed Raymond Fletcher, who was the author of the Cockle Bible. And now I don't participate in cuckolding, but the psychology behind it fascinated me. And that landed me in some hot water. And I'm
mhm,
like, who I interview on my show is nobody's business.
right.
But it's funny because I got let go, and they said I'm only allowed at the hospital for medical reasons. I'm like, you know what? I won't even go for medical reasons.
Mm-mm.
I won't even go for medical reasons. You think I'd let you guys work on me? No.
No.
No. I'm hoping that they did not screw my chances of getting in at the Toronto General Hospital because they were interested in me and I would love to live in Toronto. But and if they screwed me out of that, then I do have other avenues I could go down that they're not going to like, but I'm dealing with a lot of anger towards it right now because I don't think I should have been terminated because of things I said. But here's the thing. They've had people, and now I remember I was bound by confidentiality, but since I'm not there right now, screw it. I'll talk about it. I don't care. They've had people who've been drunk at work get their jobs back. They've had people high at work get their jobs back at a hospital, and people who sexually harassed nurses who got their jobs back. And I got somebody, and they'd say to me, especially when I was trying to deal with healing, getting over this girl, and I get people say, Miss Wright's just around the corner. Miss Wright this, Miss Wright this. I got tired of that little fairy tale being thrown at me, and I blew up and I said, if I meet Miss Wright, I'm going to treat her as badly as I was treated. I said, she will cuckold me. Now, did I mean that? No, I blew up. I don't partake in cuckolding. You know what cuckolding is, huh?
Explain it more. I know I think I know what it is, but I'm not sure.
It's guys that get aroused by seeing their wife or girlfriend with other men. Again, I don't
Oh, that's not
participate
what I
in.
thought it was. No.
Yeah, well, I first heard about it when I listened to the Howard Stern show when he was interviewing a stripper and talking about the mindset of her significant other, and I was just fascinated. I've never participated in this, but I used it to throw it back at this guy who was invading in my business where he had no business doing. And but but nonetheless, I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm dealing with a lot of anger towards that right now, and judging from some of the history that's taken place in the last short while, stuff has gone on there. Like, I mean, yeah, I said something inappropriate, but considering my contribution and no missed time, I could see me getting a suspension.
Right. Yeah. Makes no sense to me from the way you're telling it
Yep.
that they were that harsh.
Well, they said I made a threat towards women. I said, how? And I talked to somebody on well, I'm not suicidal, but I called a suicide hotline because I was dealing with depression. And the guy said to me, he says, so who did you threaten? Miss Wright? Miss Wright don't exist.
Yeah.
So you basically got fired for threatening somebody who don't exist, which means you didn't threaten anybody.
Right.
But
You
nonetheless,
might want to talk to an attorney about it. I know in Pennsylvania, it's called a fire at will state. And not to make a joke about it, but we're not talking about shooting Will. They can fire anybody for any reason whatsoever. If they don't like the color of your hair, they can fire you. They don't have to give you a reason. And I don't know how it is in Canada where you're at, but if it isn't that way, I might look into that because but then again, you got to think you want to have your name cleared, okay? But you that's the main thing. But would you want to go back there and work with them? And
you know,
I don't know if you know this about me, but I went on in school at late in life, and I have a master's in psychology, and I worked at Western Psychiatric, and been a counselor. Not anymore. I don't do that anymore. But I mean, it just happens that I start to counsel people, and I'm kind of doing that with you, and I hope that's all right. I don't want to
that's
overstep the
okay.
bounds.
Well, here's the thing, if number one, I would down deep, I would never hurt anybody, not female or anybody. But I think this guy wanted me out.
It sounds like that as a personal vendetta.
Yep. And because he said some stuff to me that, like he told me, for example, that he was told by one of the other workers I showed up at her place unannounced. Well, I contacted this person. She said never. She invited me over to her place at Christmas time 2 or 3 times for Christmas meal or whatever. She did that with
Yeah.
some of the coworkers. I never showed up unannounced. And then when she called him on it, he denies it. This is what I was dealing with.
Oh yeah, you can't fight that. You really can't fight. He's a liar, as you're saying,
Yep.
and you can't, you know. My grandma always used to say, you can watch a thief, but you can't watch a liar. And that's true.
Well, I believe in karma, and
Yeah.
I hope karma gets him. I know that doesn't sound very nice, but I'll tell you one thing. I remember doing an overnight there, and one of the supervisors was struggling to get people to come in on a snow day, and they were down 17 or 18 people calling sick. Guess who stayed on?
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, with me not there, good luck
Hmm.
getting somebody else to do that. And I'll tell you, I've had people tell me, "Well, you're just a number." Well, I never treated my employees, my coworkers, like a number,
No.
but
Mm-mm.
I guess I was treated like a number. But
Well,
you know,
here's the thing, okay? And
mhm,
you may not want to hear this, but I know you know this. You're very angry right now, and
mhm,
it sounds justified.
yep.
However, the only one that is being hurt from your anger is you. You're not hurting that girl. You're not hurting that guy that lied. You're not hurting anybody at work. The only thing that hurts, the only one that gets hurt with anger is the person who has the anger. You need to go, and I shouldn't say it that way. My suggestion is that, and I've done this, is to feel that anger, explode with it, with to God. Tell him, I mean, when I talk to God, I don't say, "Oh Lord, I'm very miffed at the person that they hurt my feelings." No, this is how I talk to God. God, I'm so pissed off at that person. I want to rip their face off. God hears me where I'm at. He still loves me. He still forgives me. He's a big God. He's not going to go, "Oh, shame on you. You said pissed off." He knows. I mean, I don't make a habit of swearing, but he knows I swear when I'm angry. Okay. And he knows that you have an anger in you. And that anger should come out. It has got to come out of you for you to be able to heal from it. But blow it up to him. I mean, just lift it up to him in exactly the way you feel it. God, I want to go strangle that guy. That guy's a jerk. He should have his fingers cut off. Whatever. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic about it, but just blow it out to God. Tell him exactly how you feel and let it out. Don't say, "Oh, okay, it's only supposed to take me one time of talking to God for this to go away, or it's only should take me a week." It's going to take as long as it takes with you personally until you're able to let it go to God. And then you need to, now I'm going to say you need, because you need to forgive these people. Man, that's a hard row to hoe.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. But again, guess what? If you have unforgiveness, guess who hurts? Guess who that's hurting? It's not hurting them. They don't even know you feel the way you feel. It's hurting you because you're feeling that poison inside of you. Little trick, okay? This has worked with so many people, and it worked with me, or I wouldn't pass it on.
Mhm.
Take a piece of paper and sit down. I mean, this is after you process your anger with God and even with somebody else, with other friends, like we're doing right now. Do you know what I mean? Uh, After you process that and that deep seated anger starts to lull, sit down with a piece of paper and you write something like this: because of what, and date it,
Mhm.
because of what Christ did on the cross to me, for me, because of all the people that I've hurt, of all the things that I've done wrong, and because of him, I can forgive people because he forgave me. That's the formula right there. You can forgive because of what you were forgiven of. Because of what he did for me on that cross, I choose to forgive Joe, whatever his name was. That's my choice. That puts the power back in your court, takes it out of their court. Right now, they have all the power because you're hurting. They hurt you. You're still hurting. Do you think they think about you every day? Mm-mm. Do you think they think about you half as much as you're thinking about them? Mm-mm. So you take the power back when you're ready, and you put that power back on your side of the court by forgiving them. Because now you've got all the power. You chose, I made the choice to forgive them. I'm the power. I'm the powerful one now.
I
And you
had.
write it down, and
Mhm.
you're doing a contract. Because of them, I choose to forgive them on whatever the date is today. Sign it, date it, and sign it. Sign your whole name like you would on a contract. Done. Take that piece of paper, I put mine in the Bible. So it's there. Now, remember, you have an enemy. Okay? You're not, you know that. As a Christian, you know the devil's out to get you. Just, devil made me do it. The devil's out to get you. He's going to remind you 100 times the first day you do that. You forgave him. Why do you still feel the way you do? Why do you still want to rip his face off? Why do you still hate him? Why are you still angry with him? Why are you still thinking about him? Why are you blah 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 blah? You didn't forgive him. That look, you're still miserable about it. You still hate him. You didn't forgive him. Yes, I did. Here's my contract on uh May, whatever today is, May 8th or 7th or whatever it is. I chose to sign for this contract. I chose to forgive him. Remind the devil that that's your contract that you chose. You may not feel that way yet. It might take 100 times. Next day, it might take 95 times of the devil reminding you, and eventually that's going to wane. That's going to go away, and it'll disappear. And maybe once in a while, the devil will come back and say, "Oh, remember when you hated that guy? That was all settled. I forgave him." You
I
get
had
more.
somebody from the that workplace on my show too, because and she wasn't a perpetrator. She was somebody that just happened to have a passion outside work that she reached out to me about, and I was like, I didn't know this about you. Come on and promote this.
Yeah.
She had something on Facebook that grabbed my attention. She said the best kind of revenge is success. And it reminded me of the fact I came so close to having Olivia Newton-John on my show before she passed away because I was in talks with her management, and it didn't happen. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't get paid to do this podcast. I do this because I enjoy it.
Right.
But one thing I'm kind of hoping for is that I get that yes that just elevates me. And again, I don't need paid to do this. I do this because I enjoy it. But I would love to just succeed at something like this where because I enjoy movies and enjoy doing this. I've been doing this podcast since 2015. It's something I just kind of
Yeah.
fell into. It amazes me that I can see some of these movies and I'm like, wow, I spoke to this person. I spoke to that person, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and this podcast reminds me that I've succeeded at something.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And how many people watch this, and how many people get joy out of it, and and take that half hour, whatever they're spending with you, and they're blessed by it,
Hmm.
or they laugh about it, or they think, It brings them to think about things, or you don't want, again, you don't know how you're affecting people. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We don't
Yep.
always get to see that this side of heaven. We just don't. We just keep doing what we're doing, and that you're righteous, and that what went on was not fair. But nobody said this was going to be fair. Not one person told us, oh yeah, this is fair. You're going to do the right thing, and then, everything's going to be hunky dory, happy day. You can do the right thing and still, you know, die or get hurt or whatever. You just, you know what I mean? You can try to, example, I was driving a car. This was years ago, and somebody pulled out, and to keep from hitting them, I went out into another lane, and I got hit, and I got hurt more so than I would have gotten if I'd have just let that person hit me. But I did it because I didn't want to hurt them, but I got hurt more. The other person that hit me didn't really get hurt, but I got hurt more. That's not right. I did that to hurt that person who was doing something wrong because they ran a stop sign. And I ended up getting hurt, and had to go for the radiotherapy and all that nonsense that I went through. That's not right. You would think people go, well, you were trying to be godly about it, and look at what happened to you. Look, God left you in that situation. I don't believe that. I believe that if God had left me in that situation, I would have probably been dead, but I'm still, still here nasty,
Yeah.
so you got to think of it that way. I mean, there's your faith. There's where your faith comes in, to think, even though, and I always go back to what the devil meant for evil, God will change for good. Because look at like what happened with me. The devil got me fired from 2 different jobs, and I'm not going to give him that much glory, but what happened, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I didn't do anything wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and I got fired, and I was doing everything right. That I would, if I did make a phone call at any other job, because I knew that, if I tried not to do that, if I did it, it was on a lunch break or something like that, or if I had to make it at a certain time, like for a doctor's appointment or something, I would work 10 minutes afterwards to make up the time that I was on the phone, even though I was on the phone and I was still working. Do you know what I mean? I tried to do what was right, what was fair to my boss, for my boss, but yet I still get fired. I could say, well, screw it, I'm not going to do anything good anymore. Yeah, nah, no, I'm still going to try to live the way I think what God would want me to live, and treat people the way He would want me to treat them. Does that happen all the time? No. Do I flip out? Oh, yeah. Once again, no halo on this head, but I know I'm forgiven. I know I'm trying to do my best, and I know that no matter what I do, that's wrong. Bottom line, Christ has my back. When I go to heaven and God says, well, why should I let you in? What, why should I can't say, oh, I did this right, and I did that right, and I did that. And I just sit there and stand there and say, because of what Christ did for me, He's the one that paid my debt. Sounds too easy, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Well,
But it's true. It's absolutely true. Once I invite Christ into my life and really want to live for Him, and want to, and know that He lives, the Holy Spirit, that most people don't understand anyway, has come to live in my heart and be part of my life, then I'm going to heaven no matter what I do. You
mm-hmm.
know, not that I'm going to go out and be rotten because I'm saved and I can do anything I want to do, but I'll still try to do my best and do what I think God would have me do. But that's not the reason I'm going to get into heaven. The reason is because of Christ and His death on the cross, paying for my debts. Oh my, I'm just going on a pulpit here, aren't I? Sorry.
You know what? I agree with you, and there's a lot about that I need to work on in my own life. But you know what? I'd say about a year from now, this is gonna be dust in the wind.
Absolutely. Maybe less time. Try the
You
try
know,
the forgiveness letter. It really
I'm really
works.
hoping though that I can get out of this province and live in Toronto. And I love Toronto. I'm glad I got invited to that con because I tell you, and hopefully maybe I can to find something there that I'll be able to sustain myself, you
I
know?
hope and pray that for you too. That would be
Mhm.
awesome, Greg. Who
Yep.
knows what the next step is? You don't know. Look at where God's brought me.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm blessed. I'm very blessed. Have good people in my life. I'm not married yet. Again, I haven't been married for ages, for years and years, but I don't know. Who knows what is out there. Like I said, I have very good friends. I don't know. I don't know where God's gonna put me tomorrow or this afternoon. Who knows?
Do you still ride the bikes?
Sadly, I don't. I was actually the first woman driver they were hired for United Parcel. Oh, I shouldn't say that, but I'll say it for United Parcel Service.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't want to hire women in the days. This was back in the 80s.
Hmm.
They did not want to hire women. And the National Organization of Women, they called themselves now, forced them through law to hire women. And they couldn't find any women who were strong enough to do the job. And I had owned the beer distributor. And like I said, I was a horse, I was strong as a horse. And I was going through a divorce and I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my business. My husband of 17 years ended up with a one of our couple friends' wives. Long story there. Lost everything to gain everything because I wasn't a Christian at the time. But I did. I lost my business, lost everything. So I was looking for a job. And one of my friends said, "Hey, they're looking for people, women especially, to hire for UPS." So I went down there. They said, "Oh, can you drive a stick shift?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can." So they hired me, but they didn't want me to succeed. So they would gave me a faulty clutch. This is just fact. And the clutch, and they'd give me the worst run every day because they knew, and I never got the same run 2 times in a row because they knew which runs were going to be the hardest. So they sent me out on the hardest ride, and they always sent me with a supervisor. Always, I always had a supervisor with me, watching every little thing I did. And
Hmm.
I ended up blowing out my knee, my left leg from the clutch that was bad. I kept turning it in, saying there's a faulty clutch. Fix it tonight, and they just never fixed it, and it blew out my knee. So now I can't really. I mean, I still play volleyball. I wrap it up with a knee brace, and I take some stuff that it's like turmeric to help the pain and all that stuff. And I still go and play volleyball, but I don't have the strength to hold up my bike with my left leg, and that's kind of where you come to a rest. I was the brakes on the right. So put your foot down on the left, and I can't do it now. Sadly, breaks my heart. It really does. I'd love to ride. I'm looking into one of those, the ones that have the two wheels in the front and the one wheel
Hmm.
in the back. I'm looking
Okay.
into checking those out. So I'll be back on the road again. Watch out.
There you go. There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
so I'd love to ride again. I do ride with a friend who's like 20 some years younger than me. But I ride with him, and he's offered me to ride the bike, and I'm like, no, no, I don't want to, if I would drop his bike, I would feel bad. But I'll ride with him and stuff. I'll go on the poker runs and stuff like that where we'll have 300 or 400 bikers. And I love it. Yeah, that's a blast. Did that a lot last summer. So
Hmm.
don't know if that will come up again this year, but if it does, I'll go. It's fun, a lot of fun. So
There you go.
yeah,
Well, you know what? It was wonderful sharing stories of faith with you, and
likewise.
yep, and talking about being a biker and Dawn of the Dead, and Night Riders, and Savini and Romero, and
Yeah,
you know, and yeah, this legacy you have from being in those movies. I hope you get to do more cons because those are a lot of fun.
they are. There's one coming up in Pittsburgh in June. I don't know the date of it. I have it written down in my calendar, but I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go. to it and just have a little bit of fun with everybody there. And that's coming up pretty soon. That's a month away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. And it's usually 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday until like 5 o'clock or something like that. But it's enjoyable and it's nice to see all the old people that were there and to see some of the people that I've seen the last few years, that come in and get the autographs from us and just talk to them and say, oh, hey, how are you doing? I remember, and I don't always remember their name, but I usually remember their faces and, get to talk to them again and, just bring up old memories and things like that. And then some of the people that were in the movie will go out and have, a meal together afterwards and talk about the movie and where we are now. And it's just enjoyable. A lot of fun. So looking forward to it.
Will
Hope
Savini be
you, hope
there?
you get there. I hope so. Yeah, he's usually there. He usually comes because that's home base. The mall is home base and that's where they always have it. So we go back. They can't get rid of us.
No, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It was wonderful having you come on here today.
Thank
And
you. It was good to
yeah,
be here. Thank you so much for asking.
oh
I appreciate
yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
sure. What do you want me to do?
Just state your name and say you were the biker chick in Dawn of the Dead.
I was
And
not the biker chick in Dawn of the Dead. A biker chick is somebody who rides on the back of the bike. I ride on the front of the bike. I was a
oh, I
biker.
did not know that.
Oh yeah, just watch it. Watch it there, buddy. You're on thin ice. No, no. Well, they
I,
even had me as somebody was my boyfriend and there was never a boyfriend in there. There was one guy that rode on the back of my bike coming down the hill that he was related to somebody that was in the movie. So they said, could you ride him on the back? I said, does he know how to, ride on the back? He kept leaning the wrong way, and he almost upset us a couple times when we came
okay.
down the hill in the back. Oh my gosh. I said, you lean the wrong way again, and I'm going to push you off the back. So don't do that. Just sit and relax. You know,
Actually, I had no idea. I thought biker chick was a female biker. That's what I always heard.
no,
Wow.
yeah, we're a
Well,
biker.
I've learned something today.
Yeah, when somebody
Okay.
says she's a biker chick, she rides with somebody else. So I
Okay.
am a biker.
Okay. Well, okay. Just say your name and that you were a biker in Dawn of the Dead and that you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
I will do that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say that first. I am with Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise. Awesome dude. Fun to talk with. Good guy in general. And I was in Dawn of the Dead. I was the only female motorcycle stunt driver in the movie at the time. And my name's Trudy Gray. And I go to the cons, and I've been invited here by Greg to do a wonderful podcast. I hear he's had so many people on his podcast. He's a great interviewer, and I hope you guys get a chance to listen to this one and to other ones that he's done too. Awesome guy. Check him out.
Are you going to bring Tom Savini a comb for his mustache?
Oh Lord, no. He's on his own with that.
Actually, I should ask this. Savini, if I ever meet Savini at a con, I know how I'm going to approach him
What?
because I noticed online he gets into elastic fights with people. And I might bring him a box of rubber bands,
Oh, that would
if
be
I
fun.
if I ever meet him, because I watched him and Danny Trejo have an elastic fight at con. It was just like,
Oh,
really, really, have you had an elastic fight with him? I could see the bikers getting into an elastic fight.
no. No. Yeah, but it would be fun. That would be fun.
Oh, Savini would be hiding behind stuff. I like Savini, you started this.
Yeah. Yep. I told you he's a little goofy.
That's
He
what
is.
I'm gonna do. If I ever meet him at a con, I'm gonna bring a box of rubber bands, and then I'm gonna get out of there
Yeah, run. Run. He'll probably win. Hate to say that,
Yeah.
but he will probably win. Or he'll probably get other people helping him.
Well, like I said, there's somewhere online, YouTube or something, him and Danny Trejo get into an elastic rubber band fight, and that was
That's funny.
pretty. It
That's
was
funny.
pretty funny watching that.
That
Anyway,
is hilarious.
yeah, personally, I think you would win.
Me,
Yeah,
I'd put up a heck of a fight.
I think you're more badass than he is. Don't tell him I said that.
I won't. Hey, I live in the hood now. I do. I live in the hood, and I'm a minority, which
Hmm.
that rocks for me. I always get, you that crazy white woman living up on a corner. I say, yeah, that's me. And they say, I hear you crazy. I say, you hear it right. So I've got a bullet hole in my car. I've got been shot at. I've been, had people come after me they told me they were going to shoot me in the face. And I said, well, how about if I shoot you in the face first? You want to
Hmm.
play? We'll play. I'll play your game. You want to play that? I said, but you want to make sure, are you ready to die today? You afraid to die? Because I'm not.
Hmm.
So if you want to get into it, we'll finish it right now. This is serious. I did. Really, one of the parked in front of their house and they were going to shoot me in the face. I said, well, hey, I'm going to heaven. Are you? That's the last one to heaven's a rotten egg, honey. You want to die? We can make it happen. And they said, you're crazy. I said, yeah, yes, I am. What's your issue? And they turned around and walked in their house. So, I am a crazy old lady. It's fun. It's so much fun.
There you go. There you go. Well, Trudy, I thank you so much for coming on here today and
My
talking.
pleasure.
Oh, this was a lot of fun, and we covered a lot of ground, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and I got a lot of encouragement out of the faith talk, and yeah, I'd say a year from now, like I said, I'll probably be in a different mindset, and you know,
And I want to hear from you too. I want to know what's going on and, you know, see how things progress and where God takes you. Should be fun.
you know what? He's taken me to a lot. He got me through a lot of stuff. I've dealt with depression in my life. The difference is that I'm not suicidal because I don't want to stand before God knowing I didn't trust Him with my life.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't be
That's.
afraid to get on medication either, because I mean,
Oh, I've got it. I've
I,
got it.
I, I said, I thank God for drugs every day.
Mm-hmm.
Praise
Mm-hmm.
every day. Thank God for Zoloft. Seriously, because I've
Mm-hmm.
been through a lot in my life, I mean, stuff I wouldn't even want to talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
that just crazy, crazy, horrible things that just bring you down and bring you down and messes up your brain chemistry.
Yep.
It's a physical thing sometimes. Depression can be a very physical thing, and a lot of times, sadly, in Christianity, a lot of people say, well, you're just not trusting God because you're depressed. That's crap, because it can be a very physical thing. And I said to one lady, I said, well, then why don't you get off your high blood pressure meds? She said, well, I can't because I have high blood pressure and I'll die. I said, well, why aren't you trusting God? Do
There
you
you
won't
go.
you don't trust you won't trust God enough to get off your high blood pressure meds? No, because if I'm taking it, I'm taking for a chemistry imbalance in my brain. So where's the sin in that? It's all a bunch of crap. People are
We
full of crap sometimes. You just have to
well,
sort it out.
our souls will be perfected in heaven. So,
Yep. That's what
yep.
I said it before. Last one to heaven's a rotten egg.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Well, God bless you. Thank you so
he
much for
does.
coming on here today.
And right back at you double.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you, and I bid you a good day.
And you also. Take
Uh,
care. God
take care.
bless. Bye bye.
Thank. Bye bye.